All right, we'll go ahead and get this meeting kicked off. And Lori promises, and myself, I'll back her up that this will be a little shorter meeting than most of our meetings are. We'll get through it pretty quick. I hope everybody. We've had a little bit of conversation here while getting everybody on the phone, but I hope everybody made it through the last few weeks relatively unscathed. Last couple of weeks primarily, I guess maybe few. It's amazing. We're in about 3 weeks when this thing was going on. And it did cause us to have to reschedule. So thank you all for your understanding of that. And I really do pray that everybody's getting back to normal, and whatever that may look like as far as COVID normal, because we have two different normals now. But I do want to offer our condolences, first of all, to Susan Hoff for the loss of her mother, and for Angela Farley for the loss of her father. Certainly, having experienced that myself, and I know a few others have, we have you all in our thoughts and prayers. With that, not a whole lot of introductions to go. I'm going to turn it over to Laurie, and we'll get started on some business, maybe recap a few things.
Thank you, Bill. Just briefly, I wanted to recap. I created a little confusion, and Michelle, thank you for drawing my attention. There were two briefing notes, one for when we should have met in February and one to revisit the packet in March. And I want to make sure nothing gets lost. So I just want to do a quick refresh. We are still talking about meetings that were held in February, the Finance Committee meeting, the Child Care meeting. We are bouncing around the conversation of, do we go back to job search for unemployed people? On top of that, we had the information about masks. And I will tell you, today was a 50-50 conversation. John Dickey and I were watching for the governor to sign a renewal of the original COVID declaration that was signed last March. With the mask mandate being dropped, we had to keep our eye on that original executive order that declared this a pandemic. That order allows us to have virtual board meetings. We are a single county jurisdiction. It is possible that that will be removed at any time. It will no longer be standing. I personally think it will stand as long as we are in recovery mode and we are negotiating for federal dollars. I believe those declarations are necessary so that your state is covered under the federal rules. However, anything can happen. So as Bill said, let's hope we can all be in person eventually or by April. But it's definitely going to be a mix, as Magda was talking about. School is a 50-50. This is a 50-50. The rule will be, if we have to go back to in person because we're no longer eligible, that the officers, and it doesn't have to be all three, but the officers would meet with me in a place that would allow the public to attend if they so chose to attend. However, you, the members, could still meet virtually if you chose, or you could join us in person. So it's going to be a flex situation either way it goes. But again, it was really dicey because we didn't have the notice until mid-morning Saturday. And so that kind of kept me on the edge of the chair and watching internet. Zoom, we're enjoying this. I know everybody likes the fact so many of us gather. So access to the meetings is so critical, and we thank you all for being here. A couple of other things in our packet that I didn't want to lose sight of. There is a budget approval that was reviewed by the committee. Carter will cover that. We are also talking about de-obligating and re-obligating funds. So that's in the consent agenda. It was Wilkinson de-obligating $100,000. Equus picking that up to continue youth services. We also have kind of run out of time to spend a little bit of the COVID money. So we're voluntarily, which I normally do with the state, de-obligating. I think it's $120,000 in temporary workers. Equus agreed they had all the workers they needed. And so we'd like to give that back so that the state can move on. We also had a figure for, I think it was about $237,000, I believe, to prevent layoff. And that would have been very important last March. It's not that important now. People are reclaiming. So those two sums will be returned to the state. Beyond that, I just want to make sure you're not blindsided by anything because we haven't talked about it and it was in the first set of notes for the February meeting. So I will try to keep pace and point to things as they come up. We are asking for a little more money for gasoline reimbursement as is appropriate. There were 2 new items added, and this would be in the policies Connie's going to discuss. One of them is to return to paying our parking with our rent at Ross Tower. Many of you will recall there was an IRS ruling that we could no longer do that. We paid $10,000 to IRS. They have since rescinded the rule, returned our money, and basically it's too complicated, especially we've learned this year. We need to take care of our obligations. And with staff not using those parking spaces, it became very interesting. So as the parking spaces are not exactly part of the rent, we have always treated them that way. So we'd like to return to that model and not keep pulling money into the staff's paycheck to pay their own parking to create that whole stir. Tuition reimbursement is on the agenda that it was not, and that would be to keep pace with the cost of education for our own staff. We have a couple of staff working on their master's degrees and we would like to take care of those bills at a fair rate. It's not a huge jump. That's on page 29. And Connie is going to talk about the plan. The plan has to go to the state. It's in really good order. We briefed the Commissioner's Court several weeks ago. We had a public hearing yesterday. He'll bring you up on all of that. Having said that, we've dispensed with all presentations today. We will bring those back in April. Today is about getting the work done that needs doing. And I apologize to new members because I promised you we never meet in March. Yeah, well, we meet in March when it snows in February to the extent that it came. I think that covers it, Bill. Questions? Anybody? Bill, you're on mute. If we can't say that once in a meeting, it's just not a meeting.
How about, is there anybody on public comment?
No, sir. There was no public comment.
Okay, and I guess we need to do the declaration of conflict of interest. So please, if you're muted, unmute and let us know.
This is Rolinda Duran, TWC and State Matters.
Thanks,
Kevin Faulkner, the same, TWC and State.
Child Care Group.
Magda with Education and Child Care for Irving ISD.
Yeah, this is Joe May.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. I apologize. I'm having all kinds of technology issues, so I'm going to hang in as long as I can this morning.
We really appreciate you joining, and I've got you down for all matters that are Dallas College. Thank you so much for bringing the new program to Dallas, $10 million initiative to skill and upskill workers. And we're proud to be a partner in that. And we really have appreciated the kickoff meeting. So you guys keep up the great work.
No, thank you very much. We're excited about that. And a couple of other, one other project with TWC is the expansion of apprenticeship program. So that was just came through last week. So good things going on. So appreciate the partnership.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Shannon Gray, anything with the Texas Department of Health and Human Services.
How are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm better. Yes, I had knee surgery, so I'm better. Had a torn meniscus, so I had to have an emergency surgery. So I'm sorry I was out for a couple of months, but I'm happy to be back.
Good to have you
Great.
back.
Glad to have you. We got everybody?
Dan?
Obviously, anything to do with Dallas ISD.
Thank you, sir. I'm on the list. Anybody else, or are we done? Okay.
Well, moving forward, I guess, from a chairman's comment standpoint on the agenda, I really don't have anything yet. 2 months into this, with the cancellation of February's meetings, we did Laurie's obviously sent out, I think, the link to the Chambers meeting that she and staff were involved in, and those that could join. A very enlightening program there. And then I think, Lori, I guess as far as Knob and Taub and when those may be going forward as far as their conventions go, we'll know a little more about that. But I was on my first Taub call, I guess, last week, which was just interesting to see the people that are involved in that, learn a little bit about what's going on with the state. And there's a lot more to learn on that. So as things come about, I'll report those as necessary, but I won't take a whole lot of time for that. But really beyond that, that's all I have for right now.
And that was for the new members, Texas Association of Workforce Boards, where Bill joins his 27 chair peers around the state and 27 other directors from around the state. And what do you think? Put his first meeting on a Friday afternoon from 3 to 4 o'clock. Yeah. It was an interesting, quick meeting, shall we say. People reported and exited, but it was a good meeting, and he got to introduce himself, or was introduced by the chair, Roger, who is the chair of the North Central Board. It went well. They're digging in more on education policies, and that part is tough for me, but they have a real fixation on K through 12. And it's interesting statewide. There was a white paper years ago on how to fix the education system to benefit workforce. And I think they're going back into that are the workforce boards actually participating in informing school districts about upcoming jobs and trends. And so I was on a call with an evaluator or an assessor for DISD yesterday. I will continue to work, Richard and his team. Just a quick caveat, there will be an opportunity, we're going to definitely pursue it, for TWC will allow us to use unneeded welfare spending. Now, we have welfare money, but during this time, we have underspent statewide because we aren't doing in-service and all programs are not in order. We can hire, and I'm calling them navigators, that's not what they're called. We can hire people to be intermediaries to the school districts of Dallas County. We can hire from 1 to 4 people. So we are looking at that. I'll bring it back to you in April. But it would be for us to be taking the information that is assembled by Dallas College, Richard's department, and Dwayne Dankesreiter's department, Mario being a factor of that, and getting that information into the hands of school districts so that they understand what workforce is working on. We do not have those liaisons now, but it would be great to have those going forward. And so that's something to look forward to. Bill, I think it's Carter's turn with the Finance Committee.
I was going to say, we're not having a closed session.
No, sir. This is as closed as it gets. Closed caption. This is us.
Okay. Carter, you're up.
Well, good morning, everyone. Listening to all the conflicts of interest, I'm almost conflicted. I'm not conflicted.
Myself.
I am a bit conflicted because it seems like I have 3 offices. I have my office that I go to a couple times a week. I have my home office, and we've had a family issue, so I'm in Austin. So everything I need is in one of the other places. So we have had a very active finance committee so far. We have met with the auditors, and we first approved their audit plan. We've had a session with our insurance brokers and discussed the upcoming renewals, and we're prepared for, it's been a tough year in the insurance business, and we might be prepared for some increases there, and we might even look at increasing our deductibles, but that's another time. We've also looked at our budget for this year and reviewed that, and I think that's in the package. Is that correct, Lori?
Yes, sir. That is, well, the budget itself was sent out as an addendum to the first notice, and then the budget action is on page 6.
Okay. And my page 6 is in one of those other places that I mentioned. So are we calling for adoption of the budget?
Yes, sir. Board, I'll read it into the record. Board authorization to accept the Finance Committee's recommendation to approve the 2021 budget as presented and ratification of the audit plan from Crow that was approved in January.
Okay, so technically, we reviewed both of those as your treasurer and as the audit, as the committee, Finance Committee. And so we call for that motion to approve that.
So it's a formal motion been made, Lori, that's the formal motion? Okay, do I hear a second?
Dan raised his hand. I'll grab him first as a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or show of hands.
Aye.
All opposed? Then the motion passes.
We thank
Okay.
you for that.
Thank you, Carter.
You bet. I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Ashley?
Good morning, everybody. Just want to say thank you to the committee for your time and your service. Those were our first 2 meetings of the year. So we'll have our next meeting after the audit in August. And you'll be hearing from me more later in the meeting to go over our program spotlight and expenditures.
And one thing I will cover at the end of the meeting is legislation that will affect budget. So expect to see this budget back in front of you with the infusion predominantly of childcare funding, we believe. There is no specific money for employment and training attached to the pending bill. However, it will probably excite some activity in workforce, but childcare definitely has an infusion. So even though we're not planning till August, yeah, we're going to see each other again on the budget.
Yes. All right, next is the Child Care Task Force.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I'll just give a quick update. You had in your packet just the notes from the meeting that we held on January 26th. And I'll just hit some key points. Lori, you really opened the door there, but you know, if you look at our, as you've reviewed the budget, our packet, you see that child care funding is going to be north of $100 million for us. So it is by, you know, a long shot, the biggest piece of our budget at Workforce Solutions and across the state as well. That's not new, that always has been the case, but I think that the increased the infusion of funding from federal dollars, as well as increased attention around the state and around the nation on the importance of child care and its clear connection to workforce has elevated this issue and also elevated, I think, the need, as this board has so well recognized, of making sure that we all understand the implications, the impact, and the associated risks of our child care expenditures. So I just want to say 3 things. One, thank you to the committee for being so engaged and being such a strong group. And then, you know, again, I think that the key point here is for us always to be clear about how child care clearly connects to workforce, because I am the first person to say I could wonk out and talk to you for hours about things that you would just think, what is that woman carrying on about? So I give 3 points. So the first is, we know this, that workforce support or childcare support keeps parents working. And we have seen that at no greater time than through the pandemic, when those were either struggling to figure out what they could do when their childcare was closed, or trying to work from home with little kids that we've all seen so endearingly in the background somewhere, but we know it's not sustainable for parents to try to either figure out a patchwork of care for their children or work from home and do the job of taking care of their children and also working full-time as well. So it is workforce support front and center. And again, we learned that, and we see, as you, I think you've said, coined the word, Lori, she session of women in particular who still hold the greatest part of childcare and care for families, choosing, unfortunately, to leave the workforce because it's just not there. It's not possible to do 2 full-time jobs all the time. So workforce support. It's also support for small businesses. The childcare industry is a significant industry. It employs thousands of people across the state and in our community. And it is a strong business, a strong small business. And so again, thinking of this, that's how it ties to workforce as well. We are supporting an industry that also supports the infrastructure of every other industry that employs people with children. And then thirdly, it is preparation for the workforce of the future. Quality in childcare matters not only for today, because parents' choice is driven by the best quality that they can provide for their children, but also we know that from the research continues to tell us that the preparation in those earliest years of life prepare children for success and school and life, and eventually being able to get and keep the good jobs of the future. And so I think those are the three things that we remember, how this connects directly to the work that we do as the Workforce Board. And the big opportunity, again, as Lori has said, is this an additional infusion of dollars coming from the federal level, which signals to us, I believe, that we're serious about really changing the infrastructure or shoring up the infrastructure of the childcare system, which is a patchwork of things taped together with very little funding, to say the least, to describe a system of disconnection that is so critically important to the infrastructure of our entire community. And so it's a huge opportunity, but as with every opportunity comes risks. And so our board being clearly focused, one, on those three things and how childcare connects to workforce and the workforce today and the workforce of the future, but also what are the things that we want to do, and we want to be sure that we are able to say, with this additional dollars, here's how we can help drive quality and infrastructure and support, again, for those workers of today and well into the future. So I think those are the things that I would say are the key tenets of the focus of the Child Care Committee, and also as we bring these resources and information to the entire board. So Lori, anything else you have to add to that?
Just very briefly, some data to support all of that. Susan was beautifully laid out. We received a wrap up Monday afternoon from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which I am a member of the Workforce Council there and a trustee. Congress is on the verge of approving $39 billion in spending for child care agencies. $1 billion of that for Head Start programs and extending the tax credit to families. Here's the frightening statements. Nearly 1 million mothers with at least one child at the age of 17 or lower is home and has left the workforce since the fall of 2019 and the fall of 2020. That's just in 1 year. According to estimates, 500,000 fathers left the labor force in that same time frame. COVID-19 more adversely affected women's employment with two reasons. Women were employed in high numbers by the industries and occupations hardest hit by the pandemic, and widespread school closures and childcare disruption also caused many women to stop working. The Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis says that fathers of young children have regained most of their labor force participation losses, while mothers have not, with childcare availability, parental concern over child safety, and affordability being the primary issues. I think I'm worried, I hope the money is where it needs to be, but we had a good meeting yesterday with Child Care Group and with Melanie particularly, who heads up their issues in legislation. Are we going to spend the money to solve the problems we know exist? And that is the serious dilemma in childcare. It's money, 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 but it's stringing it together to the real problem. And there's always a barrier. Oh, but you can't do that. Oh, you can't spend it for that. So we're going to have to work really hard with the committee, with our community partners, to understand that this money passes through to solve some problems that will put people back to work. And that may not always be everybody's first priority, but it will be ours. So thank you for that, Susan.
Thank you.
Great report, Susan. Thank you very much. I think next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Or what do we need to do on that?
You need an action, a second, and then to ask for questions, and we're happy to.
As a whole.
As a whole for the consent.
As a whole. As you've seen and hopefully seen in the notes, the consent agenda has three parts: the approval of the minutes, the contracts, as well as the endorsement of the external application. So do I have a motion to approve the
I'll
consent?
make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Carter. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. Who was that? Was that Ken?
Ken.
Oh, Ken.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
For a show of hands, all opposed? Then the consent agenda passes.
Abstentions are noted unless you have a second call, but I've noted all of the abstentions that applied.
Okay.
Thank you.
Means, ends, and expectations.
Good morning again. We're going to start with our program spotlight on page 17. And Mario, if you could pull that up to share on the screen. We're actually going over our child care grants this morning. So I think it'll be the perfect echo to show you the money with what Susan just nicely summarized for us. Here we are, page 17, child care grants. This page is actually graphing our child care services formula allocation, or CCF grant, child care local match, or CCM, and Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, or DSPS. The Child Care and Development Fund benefits the CCF and CCM grants graphed together at the top of this page, along with the Child Care Quality Grant, or CCQ, we will go over on the next page. It is the primary federal funding source dedicated to providing subsidized child care payments directly to providers based on parent choice. It is that dual purpose program with the 2-generational impact that Susan described, providing access to child care assistance to eligible families so they can work, attend school, or enroll in training to improve the well-being of their families. At the same time, it also promotes the healthy development and school success of children by providing them with higher quality early learning experiences. As I mentioned, the first chart on this page includes both CCF and CCM grants. That CCF grant, as you can tell, provides the majority of our child care funding currently. All of these budget numbers are prior to that infusion of cash we were discussing a moment ago. We pay most of the child care subsidies out of this CCF grant, along with any operations costs for child care group and board admin costs. This is a 13-month grant that runs from October 1st through October 31st of the following year, similar to that TANF grant that we discussed in the January board meeting. The Child Care Local Match Grant, or CCM, provides child care subsidies for low-income customers and runs from October through December of the subsequent year. This is the grant for which we must secure matching pledges of expenditures from local sources. Demetria brought several of these local match partners to you at our January board meeting, and you approved another one during our consent agenda this morning. Currently, our budget for these two grants is almost $91 million, and through December, we have spent $9.18 million, or about 10%. The second graph on this page is specific to funds for children benefiting from the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. This grant runs from September 1st through August 31st of the following year. This is one of a handful of grants that last for exactly 1 year, so there's no opportunity for carryover funding. However, TWC will increase funding should we need it to ensure that the population of children benefiting from subsidies from this grant will retain services. Mario, if you'll flip to page 18, thank you. This page describes child care quality improvement, or the CCQ grant at the top of the page. A portion of those child care and development fund dollars we discussed on the previous page are set aside to promote and enhance activities designed to improve the quality of child care services. Quality services are listed on this page as a reference for you and include educating parents and providing support to early learning programs working to improve the quality of child care services by participating in Texas Rising Star. Texas Rising Star is the quality rating and improvement system for Texas early childhood programs. This is another grant that runs from October 1st through October 31st of the following year. $2.5 million was set aside for Dallas in the quality grant this year, and through December, we have spent $142,000. The prior year grant was actually extended through December of 2020, and due to COVID, many boards, including Dallas, took advantage of that extra time to spend the old year money. As such, we didn't actually begin spending this $142,000 until December 2020, once we fully spent that old year money. The final grant on this report is the easiest to explain, maybe. It is the Child Care Attendance Automation Grant. TWC provides resources to the local workforce development boards for statewide implementation of a standardized child care attendance automation service, or what we refer to as the swipe card service. These are pass-through funds provided to boards to pay TWC's vendor for the managed network service to track attendance. This grant is similar to the DFPS grant we saw on the previous page in that it lasts for exactly 1 year, in this case, October through September. As with the DFPS grant, TWC will increase our funding if needed. Our current budget is $458,000, and through December, we have spent $79,000. Are there any questions on our child care program spotlight?
Ashley, I want to thank you for pulling this information together. It's very helpful, especially for new board members, to see exactly all of these grants and the impact of them, the magnitude of them. And so highlighting this is very important. And I thank you for pulling that together. It's very helpful.
Absolutely.
Very timely this month. I mean, this is significant. And as Susan mentioned, this grant could skyrocket, and it is already a major part of what we do.
Thank you.
Lori, I was going to just bring to everyone's attention that, you know, the workforce itself, the workplace itself is in the transformation dramatically as we figure out where the workers will work at home or work part-time in the office, or how that's, and all that's going to be revealed in the next few months if numbers continue to decline as they have. So just as the workplace is being transformed, so is the workforce being transformed, and childcare as well. So I think this board has a mighty tall order, as we do in the workplace, trying to figure out what things are going to look like. And as you said, there's going to be a lot of money thrown at childcare, but that's directly affected by how people work and where they go and how they're what you do with your children. So a lot of work ahead and a lot of uncharted territory. The 2020 was uncharted. I think 2021 will be also uncharted territory.
No question, no question. Richard, I think you're up with performance.
Yeah, and I am. And the performance page is on 24, and I think Mario is going to get to that. And just to recap, I'm Richard Perez. I'm research manager for the board. And the MPR stands for Monthly Performance Report. And that's like our report card from the Texas Workforce Commission on how we're doing on contracted measures. So the most recent report we have is for December. And there's a few categories of performance, and I'll just run through, touch on those quickly. The first is reemployment and employer engagement measures. They're working on the targets. COVID is certainly complicating everything, but that's what those measures are. Participation measures, which includes choices and childcare. Choices is the participation rate or work rate for TANF families into the workforce, and childcare is the average number of children served per day. Childcare measure is the only measure we're not meeting for December, and excuse me, most of the boards are also not meeting this. In fact, only 2 small boards in the state are. So hopefully that, I know Child Care Group is working on that. I think that'll be improving shortly. And then the last group is WIOA outcome measures. And we're doing well on those. And those always cover entered employment, credential attainment, median earnings, and retention. So before I go into economic impact, is there any questions? You can go to the next page, Mario. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and cover the economic snapshot. And I just want to touch a few things on the page. The December unemployment rate, 6.8%. The high for this year was 13%, and that was in April. So we've done some improvement since then. The number of claims, 357,900. That is unprecedented number. And an idea for what a normal number of claims for 2019 for a full year, it was approximately 62,500 for Dallas County. I'm going to touch on just a little bit of information that is not in the report, and that is the quarterly employment and wages. And that is the number of employees for third quarter 2020, and this is a real number based on unemployment insurance records. When you compare that to third quarter 2019, it would show a real job loss of 106,626. So that was the impact from third quarter 2020 to third quarter 2019. Now, the good news in that is the number of businesses did not go down. And in fact, it increased about 1,000 establishments to 80,500. So we'll look forward to fourth quarter to see what kind of changes those bring about. But I'm anticipating that we gain some jobs back in the fourth quarter of 2020 and hopefully through 2021 as well. And that ties into the 2 infographics on the bottom corner, which is they basically say that the most job losses were in some of the lower wage jobs, which were in the leisure and hospitality industry. And then the circular bar saying the most jobs that are in demand are the ones that pay a little bit more and have credentials that hopefully we can help people earn and get so they can get into some of those higher paying jobs. But that is the end of the report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Hey, Lori, and first of all, Richard, thank you so very much. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to Richard. Councilman Casey Thomas has established a Black COVID task force primarily targeting economic recovery in the southern part of Dallas, and I think it's about 4 codes. And Lori was so gracious to allow Richard to provide some data, and he's actually been a part ongoing with this information. And it's interesting because we know many of the council members that cover the southern part of Dallas, they're very concerned about their constituencies obviously being out of the labor market and if they are crowded into low wage jobs. And so part of the data in which Richard was able to share was talking about specifically the places of work versus the places of where residents actually reside. And so we and Councilman Casey's task force really want to continue to partner with the workforce board so that we can get these individuals back in the labor market. So Richard, thank you so very much. And Lori, thank you for lending him to Councilman Casey and providing this very critical data. Thank you. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you for making that connection. It's the first time I think we've ever sustained a relationship with a committee. So that's a really good thing for us. Thank you.
Great job,
Now,
Richard.
thank you. And before I go, I wanted to address Dan's question, and we are working with On Target. I've had a conversation with Lorraine as well as Trey Black. So they have positions and work in Texas, and we're doing what we can to help them fill some of those jobs. And we'll continue to do that.
Dan?
But that's it.
Thank you for that, Richard, and for the report. I actually had another request to consider including in the report. And earlier on in the pandemic, on a national basis, when they would report the unemployment claims, they would go all the way back to the 60s and show that the monthly claims that would take place, or the weekly claims actually, that would take place every week during the pandemic would be the highest ever in history if it wasn't for the other weeks that were in 2020. And I think that does provide some perspective that even as things are starting to get better, the weeks that we're dealing with, even in March of 2021 would still be the worst ever, except for the weeks, after the pandemic.
Okay, I can bring some of that information to the next.
And that could be, Dallas or DFW specific. That would be great.
And Dan, I appreciate you bringing that up because I've been at this more than 40 years. We used to say that full employment was 3.5 to 4.5%. I think we're going to remark that, and full employment across America is never going to see those low numbers again. That is really concerning to me. Don't believe that we can deal with subsidies, federal subsidies for families as an ongoing thing. And yet I'm worried about returning people, high school graduates who don't have post-secondary skills. There just aren't going to be the jobs. So again, learning community, lifelong learning, bringing people back in for upskilling, which is really what Dr. May and his group are working on. But we are in a dire situation here of returning people to the workforce with meaningful jobs and meaningful incomes. We appreciate that longer view. I think it will bring it home.
I guess moving along on the agenda, we'll go. Mario, you were up, and I want to thank you for your notice, your early bird reminder this morning. Please keep that up, because the reminder a week ago, whenever it came out, I misplaced that one. So I'm glad you came up with this. You're up.
Well, I think Richard kind of stole my thunder.
Yeah. No, I took most of that, and I got to give Mario credit for preparing the report and adding all the nice infographics and things like that. But it went hand in hand with the plan, which will come up later. So we decided for me to go ahead and pick up the economic snapshot. So I think it's on to Demetria.
Oversight and contracts. Demetria, you're up. Sorry.
Good morning. I'm Demetria Robinson, Executive Vice President. I'll be presenting contracts and agreement items on page 28. We only have 2 items that we're seeking board authorization on this morning. First is Child Care Group's existing Child Care Assistance Services contract, adding funds for direct care services. $5,132,381 are in Department of Family and Protective Services funding that Ashley covered this morning. And those costs will help us pay for kids referred by DFPS. The $7,605,894 in child care discretionary funds, the CCF funds, is specifically for the 25% enhancement reimbursement rate to providers during COVID. So that is our action on child care group. If there's no questions on that, I will move to the second item. And the second item is Equus Workforce Solutions existing youth system contract. And we're adding $500,000 for the Summer Earn and Learn program to provide 153 students with disabilities with work readiness training and paid work experience opportunities. In addition, Lori mentioned early on that in consent, Wilkinson Center de-opt $100,000 for their youth job skills program. We are reallocating those funds to Equus to help serve additional youth between the ages 18 and 24 with training scholarships along with supportive services to achieve recognized credentials leading to employment. Those are the two items that I have. If there is no questions, we'll move to a recommendation asking the board to amend, to authorize the amendment of child care group and Equus existing contracts as presented.
Mr. Chairman,
together.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we amend the contracts for child care group and Equus as presented.
As Carter, do I have a second?
Abstain.
Second.
We did have a second.
I think that was Susan.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Show of hands,
Aye.
or please say aye. All opposed? Same sign. And we've noted the abstentions, I believe. So that motion passes. Thank you, Demetria. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Connie?
I'm up. The next items are procurement and policy and the plan, as well as oversight. So if you'll look at page, I believe it's page 28 of the board packet, we've presented the portal procurement to the board before, and in January, they recommended that we conduct interviews of the top 3 scoring proposals. And those scored 70 or above. That was Cornerstone, On Demand, Degreed, and EdCast. Following the interviews, staff reconvened and we determined that EdCast best met the needs of the procurement for the PATHS project. With the final score for EdCast, it was 91.7, Degreed 86.7, and Cornerstone 85.3. EdCast Inc. has proposed $210,050 for their first year to serve up to 5,000 users. Following that, the second and third year costs are $120,050 for each year. So we feel that, you know, EdCast would best meet the needs for this project, and we're excited to begin the process with EdCast. So the recommendation is board authorization to negotiate and contract with EdCast for some no greater than their proposed amount. If there's any questions.
Any questions on that? Then I guess we'll look for a motion for the board authorization. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that.
Thanks, Carter. Do I hear a second?
Second, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. Again, by show of hands or saying aye, all 4?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Then that motion passes.
I'm reporting no abstentions on that one. Anybody want to correct that? Great. This has been a long time coming. This was important to get this one done so we can get on with satisfying the governor's project.
Appreciate that. The Lori has already sort of briefed quite a few of these policies at the very beginning of the meeting. First is the policy for work search, and things have continually changed, but with the executive order from Governor Abbott for no mask, we're entertaining beginning job search again. In 2013, we had 4 job searches. In 2020, the board recommended 3 job searches. So this is kind of at the board's purview of when you want to begin this, and what is your recommendation on this?
Didn't we suspend in 2020 though?
We did. We suspended. I believe it was June or so, or April. We suspended the job search.
We made our own amendment in November. We went down to 0 job searches, which became our purview. There was a period the state suspended. Then it was the board's responsibility. If you remember, I did that by virtue of taking a polling. Now we're back to a really difficult time. In the governor's comments, he said everyone who wants to work should be allowed to work, having nothing to do with the mask, but more to do with a more encouraging environment for people to rejoin the workforce. It is difficult. I don't want to suggest this is a huge issue. If people do not do their 3 job searches a week, they would have problems continuing to collect unemployment. And the pandemic benefit will kick in hopefully very, very soon, the $300 per week. However, this is how open it is. The state has said it can all be virtual. They can do virtual applications. They can participate in the online system called Metrics, which is training and log attempts, to train and get a credential. There are multiple ways to do this safely, and they're strongly encouraging boards to consider between 1 and 3 job searches per week. Our friends in North Central adopted this for the month of January, and they wanted to go to 5. They're very rural. Other than Denton and Collin counties, they have the rural donut around us and less caseload. The 3 job searches that we used to do are probably in order. However, if we see that things kind of go awry with spring break and an uptick in cases, I would think that we'll probably begin to tamp it back down. But as long as the searches are virtual, as long as people can meet these tests virtually, I'm worried about people getting stale and getting complacent about search, and then every same time, and nothing happens. It does require us to do more in-person services in our centers because a lot of people do not have access to computers. That is a tough conversation. We cannot reopen Irving. Irving has water damage, busted pipe in the restroom area. We will not reopen Opportunity Center only because it is now a major distribution center for food. So that parking lot is very crowded. We could open and plan to open 6 centers starting Monday for limited face mask, still requiring face masks, sticking to the plan we approved last summer. People should wear a mask. We can't enforce it in all cases, but we can work with people to make them understand it's their safety and the safety of other customers and staff.
Lori, when would this go into effect? Would it be immediately, or is it like the 1st of April, or?
The board can set the date, Bill. It'll go into effect any Sunday, as long as I've had time to notify the state so that they can hit the button. It could be April 1. It could be as soon as, which would probably be a week from this Sunday. And again, it is, let's get busy and find your way back into the workforce virtually for now, or begin to make in-person contact.
Hey, Lori, I'm really concerned about this one. I mean, we're at what, 6.5% vaccination rate only. People don't have to wear masks anymore. Are we not just putting people, sure, you can look online, but once they're re-entering the workforce and your customers don't have to wear masks and there are no vaccines. So I'm pretty concerned about this one.
I appreciate that, Rebecca. And It is a very valid concern, especially in the metro areas. I think you'll hear this more in Houston. They've now got all 5 variants in their community. You know, the numbers are just not the same when we go to Texoma or we go to Lubbock or we, you know, but in the metro congestion, this could get out of hand in a hurry. The new criteria is 15% occupancy in our hospitals. It is not about the occupancy in ICU and ventilator capacity and such as it was for the first year. So it changed our world just a little bit. And I'm not really sure when that uptick might hit to where the mask would go back into effect, or at least the judge would have the option. So you make a valid point. We're hoping that people recognize that wearing a mask in our centers is a requirement. Our staff will be masked, people that are serving the community, but we cannot deny people federal services, federal access just because they won't wear a mask. So we're working out how to serve people who are not comfortable in that environment. This is all very critical.
Right. But my concern is not necessarily when they go to the job fair. It is when they go to a job where there are not protections against the virus and maybe don't have health coverage. And if the priority is hospitalizations, then to send it back, that's like when people are very, very sick or dying, we'll think about redoing this. And I think that's a very high threshold.
True. True.
Yeah, you know, and Rebecca, I think too, it bears to say that disproportionately will affect particularly low-income workers and people of color, because those are folks who are probably going to be most likely to not be able to work remotely. They're also folks that would have to go into a site in the first place, and as you pointed out, Lori, to access internet because of the digital divide that we have. So, I mean, you know, I think it is a concern across the board, but I think the concern is probably, again, as I said, disproportionately impacts people who are already at higher risk. And so, you know, weighing this as to broadly, but also thinking about who we are impacting the most it should be part of our decision making.
And please know it is the board's option.
Lori, what are we at right now?
We are at 0 job searches, and we have been there since given the local option.
And we talked about this in January, and with some of the, you know, I think it was right after the New Year's Eve, the holiday deal, not knowing what was up until we obviously had some better numbers. Now we're here at spring break. So I don't know if we need to, if this is a motion, we can put this on hold until the April meeting if we want, and keeping it 0. But I'm really concerned about the complacency issue myself. They haven't had to go out, and sometimes when you're not having that pressure, you just take it for granted, and it's on. This is going to be however we do it, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. It's gonna mean people doing their best to get online, finding a way to get online to try to do job searches. So we need to kind of keep all that in mind as we're moving forward. But we can table this until the April meeting, 3rd week of April, and see how things look, how the numbers look, and move forward then.
We would need to adopt the 0 threshold until the April meeting. In other words, it would have to be in the affirmative that we are not moving off of 0 job search, and that will affect things. And that's, I want this board included in this decision. This is one of the most important things we've done through the pandemic, and it continues to be in the reentry to the workforce.
Well, and Lori, regarding your workforce centers, I think there's some things, some housekeeping that you must do before you just open those doors. And I know you know that, but there has to be signage, there has to be cleaning protocol, there has to be contract tracing. So I sort of lean towards the chairman's recommendation to kind of kick the can for a month while we get all that in place, working towards opening those up in April. or May, which, there's no harm to do that. So I kind of like that recommendation myself.
Agree with Bill and with Carter on that. I think that we should maybe wait until April or May and look and see what the situation looks like.
And just so we're aware, our centers are primarily on point. The plexiglass is in. However, we're listening to other boards, and I think we're going to order some more plexiglass. In other words, we took care of reception, but now we're going to take care of resource room. We do have trying to hire day porters, people to keep things clean. We've put keyboard covers in place. So we bless Equus. They are amazing at fast forward, and they're ready to go when this board tells them to go. And that, I think, is the best quality of a good contractor. But yes, more work could be done, Carter, in preparation. There's always something to learn about other people's experience. And I'm closely watching Gulf Coast. That board is more like us than any other.
Well, we've had incidents in our office, and every time we have one, we learn something. Probably the most important is contract tracing. Who was that person around, and contacting those people so that they're safe and they're aware of their exposure. And that's very difficult with the general public. So I really think that's an area of focus. So again, I think it's a good idea to kick the can down the road one more month if we can.
Do we have any more comments or discussion?
Lori and the group, I just want to say that for Irving, what we've done to avoid that, obviously we still have to continue to hire, especially in the custodial, work facilities. We have been conducting drive-up hiring events. So it's all outdoors, and people, applied before, and the interview's actually done in their car, so they don't even get off the car. So, we've been pretty successful, but I know for us here, the workforce would be a larger scale, but, we just had to brainstorm ideas, how can we do this so we avoid all that contact tracing, because that was huge for us. They come in, then we find out they were positive, so then we had to send the hiring, staff home. So, we just had to make it work. But, I think waiting a little longer wouldn't hurt because we are bigger.
I do want to bring up the optics issue, though. The fact that they're getting additional unemployment now, and we're not acting to see that they are actively searching for jobs. That may not warrant the risk that we're talking about, but I do want to bring up the possibility that the optics will not look good.
So noted. I agree. That's the complacency we're talking about. And really what we're weighing is that complacency versus the safety of all the people involved. And I think at this time, to err on the side of the safety, I don't think we'd be criticized too harshly with that as our main concern, which it is. But I do think we really need to keep a close eye, since we won't be having a meeting, literally a meeting in March. We'll be in the third week of April, and we should know a lot by that third week. Whatever happens during spring break, based on the statistics, would have already happened by that time. So if numbers incredibly spike, we learn something. If numbers stay relatively flat or continue to go down, then we can really make a pretty quick decision in April to start May 1. Is that I say that right, Lori?
Yes, sir. Actually, we could start with notice. We could start immediately after that workforce board meeting in April.
But certainly what Carter said, it's today's the 10th. So realistically, we got about 5 weeks in front of us to kind of get those facilities safe as we can, and be ready to hit the ground. And I think that's one thing we probably should be prepared for from a staff standpoint, is to hit the ground running May 1st, being proactive with that and not reactive based on our decision at the April meeting.
And I think in the interim, we can continue to outreach unemployed persons. We can continue to try to match them to good jobs and take appointments that are safely conducted. So we can resume, or we could initiate a higher level of in-person contact without really reopening centers, doing more what Magda suggested, which is more curbside than we have done perhaps, and more appointments. I know Relinda's team with VR is anxious in some cases to get back because they feel a disconnect from customers. Some customers need that in person, but I think we can come to the middle of that. I do agree with Dr. Knight. The optics will be tough, guys. You'll hear about it. Bill and I will hear about it. But we were left with the conversation last week, believe it was on Friday morning, from the state that this is about local control. We hope everyone conducts themselves with common sense and protecting each other, but we can't rely on that. We're in the same condition that businesses are in, except that we are providing a service that should be made available to people, and we will find our methods for that. It doesn't mean grand opening of the centers. We were not going to go that far anyway. We need to be sure about capacity. Some of our centers are very small, but I think the board, you should make an action. Second, take a vote, and let's do a count so that we're sure we're not just misreading.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yeah. Do I have a motion to table the vote for a job search until the April meeting?
Michelle Thomas moved.
This,
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
and then this is Shannon.
Okay. All in favor, show of hands or say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, my dogs are voting. All opposed. Show of sign, sorry, show of hands. Did we get a count, Lori?
I need abstentions. I want to protect anyone who
Okay.
feels they don't record
Any
it. Kevin, are you nodding as an abstention? Okay. And Relinda, any?
Yeah, I'm going to abstain.
Anyone else want to be recorded as an abstention? All right. State employees, and I understand this is a tough one, and y'all can tell state it was fully debated though.
Yes. Yes.
We did not take this lightly. And we are worried, guys. I think we all know what spring break probably will bring. And it hopefully will be a momentary blip and we don't do too much damage. Really quickly, the other actions, because we are losing folks. Ken had to step off and there were some important issues for other people. We're adopting, of course, the IRS reimbursement. Connie, I'm just going to kind of run with this. Tuition reimbursement. We were previously doing $1,250 and $3,000 maximum lifetime. So $1,250 calendar year, $3,000 lifetime. We want to increase that to $3,000 per calendar year and $10,000 lifetime. We respect higher ed, and we have some really wonderful young adults now in our team who need to pursue those advanced degrees. It will only make us better and make our workforce better. The staff parking, unless you have objections, we'd like to return that to a board paid circumstance so we can contract with the garages through the leasing agent and make sure that we're not up against the problem in the future. We do not reserve spaces. These are general parking, but if you don't have contract, we could lose those spaces. And it's unfair to ask staff to pay for parking when they're not there. So it was a very interesting year, shall we say. The next one down is acceptance of the plan, and I will leave that to Connie. Would you like to take action on those two? Well, yeah.
3 of them, isn't it? The port services, the tuition, and the staff parking?
Yes, sir.
So do we have a motion to approve those 3 policies moving forward?
As I make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Molly.
Thank you. All in favor, show of hands. Show a sign or say aye. All opposed. All opposed? And Lori, any abstentions to note on this?
Should anyone want to abstain for, okay. So Connie, let's hit the plan hard, and then I just have 2 more issues to throw in at the end.
Yes, ma'am. This is the acceptance of the 2021 Workforce Development Plan. Mario, could you pull up the plan summary, and I'll go through that really fast. The plan has been up for public comment. It's a required element for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. The plan covers 2021 through 2024. We had a public hearing, as Lori mentioned, yesterday. It's been on our website since February 5th, and we also went to the County Commissioners Court February 19th. So all public comments received for the plan will be included with the plan. Mario, if you could switch to page 2. There you go. Page 2, we kind of outlined some of the goals within the plan, and our primary customer is employers, but we're working with all of our programs to best meet the needs of job seekers, young adults, and childcare is huge, even in the plan, because childcare affects everything. If you look at page 3, Mario, page 3. This is we kind of highlighted some new initiatives for 2021. We're looking at a work and learn strategy using technology tools, significant private sector investments, quality childcare. Lori mentioned we're partnering with the community college for one workforce project. There's a whole bunch of things that we're doing, and we're flexible. The plan is flexible. We can always amend it to include new strategies or new initiatives to meet employer needs. Just real fast, Richard was going to cover economic development, but he covered that earlier in the meeting. The very last portion of the plan summary covers the target occupations list. And these are occupations that we offer training in, and Richard highlighted in red significant occupations that we're adding to the list, and this supports our industry sectors. Information technology has information security analysts, software developers. Mario, if you could turn to the next page. Industrial engineers, mechatronics technologists, that's a new one. So these occupations are very important to how we're training adult and dislocated workers. So Lori, I did it really fast. That concludes the plan. But if there's any questions, we plan to submit the plan after board action today. So
it is delayed because of our meeting, just so you'll know, it needed to be in sooner. Connie and the team has continued to work. I want to point out the impressive projections of our economy. Dallas, North Central Texas will be a very sweet spot in America when it comes to development, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to migration to our area. There is not a week that has gone by that we don't hear of new openings, new purchases, jobs being opened. For all of the gloom and doom and the increase in unemployment, we're going to have an amazing market. Whether the rest of the country does or not is a real issue. Texas is going to do well, and North Texas more so than any.
No question.
Yeah, the projections are amazing. But if you have jobs that we have overlooked, please, please, please drop Richard a line and ask, at least ask, give me the numbers. Isn't that a job that we should be working on? If you'll notice, though, it's high skilled. So yes, we need an action to submit this plan as is. And as Connie says, it's a living document. We can amend it at any time, but we do need an action to submit.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we submit it.
Thank you. How about a second?
A second.
Thank you, Betsy. All in favor, show sign of hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions?
Anybody? Yay.
All right.
Hey, Lori.
Thank you, Connie.
Michelle, I just have one question. Is it possible that we can, perhaps at least I can get in on a one-on-one, a deep dive into, I mean, that $10 million initiative to upscale is huge, and we just got highlight narrative, and I think that's just really important. And then Dr. Joe May talked about the Texas Workforce Commission expansion of apprenticeships. I mean, all of that's just stuff that's good to know, and I don't know if we can get a deep dive on that because it's really important.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair Bill.
Off the top, the 10 million is wonderful. $500,000 of that is to our board. We will do the front load to make sure they get non-traditional students into Dallas College. That is what our goal is, getting our people into those programs. We will also assist on the end of the project in making sure everyone gets a viable job that is training related. We'll do our best in that. I will tell you every Monday between 10 and noon, Stephen is running these fabulous Facebook Live events. We are working with Bank of America on a partnership. We've got Ashley Furniture next Monday and a few others. So things are really moving beyond just apprenticeship and labor exchange and training. It's a lot going on. One activity I want you to be aware of in our community, and I believe it is here. It was maybe, and I think it's here. There is a new entity called 110. It's ONETEN, one word. And I'll just read you who 110 is. And we have already begun our partnership. This afternoon, there will be a meeting with the Thrive Board. They are integral to the Thrive process. And this is about equity, but it is such a high level, you've got to know about it. 110, careers for Black talent in America in 10 years, 1 million people, 1 million Black professionals in the next 10 years going into corporate. Who we have leading this are corporate CEOs who have recently stepped down. Maurice Jones is the CEO, but the co-chairs are Ken Frazier at Merck and Jenny Romedy, who just left IBM. You've also got Ken Chenault from American Express, or left American Express, Charles Phillips. Look it up, guys. It's 110.org. It's amazing. These are people that have power. They're using their power for equity and for a resurgence in the conversation, taking it to a much higher level. And we're going to work directly with them. So we have a lot of corporate America calling us saying, hey, how about us? Can you help us find the diversity that we need? And it's an amazing day to have those phone calls, let me tell you. It's all very, very cool.
Add to Lori, that Goldman Sachs, y'all may have read that the Goldman Sachs announced their $10 billion 1 million Black women initiative. And so thank you for all, I'll forward that to you, Lori. But anyway, all good stuff, all good stuff.
Thank you so much. It is the awareness, I think the pandemic was a perfect storm for everything we've struggled with the last, say, 16 months is a perfect storm for innovation and creating solutions. And I think that's what I like about the new conversations. People seem to be focused on the outcome instead of just making the inputs happen. One thing, got a new initiative. This is bizarre in a way, and yet I'm so thrilled. The First Lady of Texas will be leading this, but we are going to be able to hire at least one, if not two counselors to help with employment of survivors of sex trafficking. So there's only a few boards in the state that will be included. We raised our hand early. I'm very committed to this. If we can be a help, there are a lot of people in our community. It's just an undercover situation we don't deal with, but a lot of the people can find their way out of this if they have a good job, if they have sustainable. We will not become social workers. We will work directly with the survivor counselors and advocates. And our job will be the employment and training to see that people can stabilize a life outside of that industry, sad industry. As you remember, maybe last May, we came to you about Road Trip Nation. At that time, we were going to expend public money. Following that, we were going to spend $100K Schultz Foundation money. At this point, it's $125,000 or $150,000 over 2.5 years. It falls in my purview, but I want you aware of this. And if you want to take action, that would make me very happy. We have earned income for many, many, many of our programs over many, many years. And Ashley's nodding her head. It's in the financial summary. We have adequate resources to protect the agency, but I would like to use private money for Road Trip Nation, because that is what's happening in Gulf Coast. That is what's happening in North Central Texas, so that this does not become a government product, but remains a product cooperative with PBS. And we protect the integrity and licensing of the program. It does not become a controversy as to who owns it, what it was intended to do. So I ask for your support if you can take action. It was not on the agenda. We took action last May. This is a pivot from public resource to private resource. Ashley, that account is now at
900,000
in earned income and private resource at the agency. And we only need 150,000 of that rolling over into almost 2023. And this is a shared cost with Gulf Coast and with, I think, an infusion of about 42,000 from our North Central Texas board. And Strata threw in another 50,000 to kind of keep this thing where it should be. So it was 250 to begin with. Once we take into account Strata's extra donation and the support from North Central, it gets us down to the 150 ballpark.
How would we word this this approval?
It's
motion
to support Road Trip Nation to continue on that journey, but to support it with private resource to maintain the independence of the project.
Okay, and before we ask for motion, I'm assuming we still have a quorum?
Barely. Connie, do we have? Let me count real quick. 1, 2, 3.
I believe we do one.
Yes, we do. On the nose.
Okay, then I'll look for a motion, I guess, for the Road Trip Nation extension as Lori proposed it.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Carter. Do we have a second?
Michelle Thomas, I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle. All in favor, show of hands or say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Same sign. And are there any abstentions? All right.
Thank you so much. It will make the project cleaner and I think just a little more vibrant. We can move past some roadblocks. Pardon the pun, Road Trip Nation roadblocks. Woo. I've been up way too long.
That was too easy.
I've told you about 110. I've told you about the sex trafficking. Dallas Works. This is a very big project for Mayor Johnson. He has invited us to the table this year in a more robust way to report all of our youth placements in his numbers this year. We have no problem with that. No action is needed. We will do a coordinated strategy with Education is Freedom, the nonprofit that is the backbone of that activity this summer. It's going to be a tough summer because we last year, I think it was a smaller program with a lot of virtual internships. This year, they're going to try to get more kids, all kids from 14 to 24. They're particularly picking up our kids, which is 18 to 24-year-olds. Previously, they have been confined to K through 12. So this year, Dallas Works will pick up all youth opportunity between working age and 24 years of age. Happy to support that, work with them. We're really connecting to a lot more activity during COVID. I couldn't have bet on this, but we seem to have more points of contact to all matters, as you can hear from the presentations today.
Great. Anything else, Lori? Is that?
I think we've beat it to death. I'm sorry it ran till 9, but I more than anyone, I appreciate the robust conversation around work search. You have no idea. I'm proud of all of them.
Lori, I'd just like to add, I know this was a hard thing and we've got to talk about it. It's just that today of all days, today is the 1-year anniversary of the first case in Dallas. We reported just today 31 deaths in the county, 8,300 deaths in DFW, and the numbers of infections are much higher daily than they were when there was a decision to halt the surge. And that's why I want us, to think about this a little bit more.
I appreciate that, Rebecca. We shouldn't get caught up in we should stick to the facts.
That's right. Well, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules on an unscheduled meeting day. But I know this time when we were supposed to meet, you were probably shoveling snow or something else at your house. So thank you again for your time. Appreciate it. And we will see you in April.
Great leadership, Bill.
Oh, you're too kind. You can cash that check now, Michelle.
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great
Bye-bye. Meeting adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Bye.